Hello, I'm Clare Lopez with the United West. Today I thought to talk to you briefly about the phenomenon of martyrdom as being promoted by some of the top leadership of Hamas, of Hezbollah, and senior other clerics like at Al-Azhar University, the foremost institution of Sunni learning for at least 1,000 years, and other senior ulema, including top Muslim Brotherhood figures here in the United States. The concept of martyrdom is a concept that is urged upon the faithful, is urged upon the Muslim faithful who will fight in jihad. And in this instance, it's fighting in a kinetic way, in jihad. Now, martyrdom is the English word for that, but in Arabic, the original, it is called becoming a Shaheed. A Shaheed is a Muslim who falls in battle in fighting jihad, which the definition in Islamic law is warfare against the non-Muslim. So a Shaheed is one who falls in jihad fighting against the non-Muslims. And so it is urged upon the fighters today among Hamas, among Hezbollah, among other proxies of the Iranian regime, to include the Houthis of Yemen and the so-called Hashd al-Shaabi in Iraq, who are attacking American bases and service members in Iraq and also in what used to be called Syria. Well, what is a Shaheed? What is such a draw for Islam and for the fighters of jihad? Well, it comes from Islamic doctrine, and the promises made to those who fight jihad, as they say, fi sabilillah, in the way of Allah, are many, and especially probably enticing to the young 20-something Islamic man who is on the front lines of these battles today, certainly in Gaza, also on Israel's northern border with Hezbollah, with Lebanon. So the promises for the fighter who dies in jihad, fi sabilillah, fighting jihad, and becomes therefore a Shaheed, begin with immediately being transported to paradise, where it is promised that that fighter, that fallen fighter, will spend eternity basking in the presence of God, of Allah. And in addition to that, awaiting that martyr, that Shaheed, are other benefits. Let's call them benefits. They begin for the young man with 72 virgins, the black-eyed houris, as they call them. And for the women, who sometimes can be Shaheeds as well, we're not quite sure what they get. I think they get to wait for their husbands to join them there in paradise. That's about it for the women. But in addition to those promises, the Shaheed is promised to be allowed to broker into paradise, likewise into eternity, immortality in paradise, to broker in 70 of the closest relatives in the family. And they get to, all of them, the Shaheed and the family members who are brokered in, get to skip what is called the torments of the grave. Torments of the grave is a concept that is taught to little children from the earliest grades in the madrasas, in the Islamic schools, to frighten them. It's horrible what the torments of the grave are said to include. The idea of immortality, I think, must be considered. Many times we'll hear comments made to the effect that Islam is a death cult. Well, in a way, but the consideration of death, the looking forward to death, is thought of more as a doorway to immortality than it is an end in itself. So what that means is that the young man, or maybe woman, but fighting fi sabilillah jihad, who dies in the act of killing the enemies of Islam, becomes a Shaheed, transported immediately into paradise, and is promised eternity, immortality, basking in the presence of Allah. Allah is simply the Arabic word for God. And then in a kind of a twofer, or maybe it's threefer by this point, The Shaheed who has died in the act of jihad, in the act of killing enemies of Islam, is hoping to establish Islam on earth in a kind of immortality for Islam on earth. So we can see from this that the idea of martyrdom, of becoming a Shaheed, is not just the benefits that accrue to the Shaheed who dies in the act of jihad, but it's also the promise of immortality, not death. Death is merely the doorway to get to immortality. So in fact, it's more a cult of immortality. It's hard for us to think about these things or wrap our heads around it because we don't think this way, but they do. So in brief then, that is a bit of a summary for you about how these Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah, Houthi, and other fighters are thinking about going to their deaths. And in many cases, looking forward to the death, but only as a doorway to eternity and immortality in paradise. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us today. We'll continue these series of short videos to come.